Welcome to iPad Pros, the show all about using your iPad to be productive and get work done. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
The spirit of the app as a distraction-free thinking space for you has been very core since the very beginning.
Welcome to another episode of iPad Pros. We are joined in this episode by Adam Wulf. Adam is the developer of the awesome Muse app for iPad, Mac, and iPhone. I first heard about Muse back in episode 192 of this podcast from Jacob Samuel Rose and was very intrigued. So in this episode, we'll be doing a deep dive into Muse and learning a bit on how Adam uses the iPad. This episode was recorded just a few days before Apple's Let Loose event. As a reminder, if you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/iPadPros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. By supporting the podcast financially, you'll get early access to both iPad Pros and Vision Pros. My great thanks to everyone that supports the show. Also, if you haven't left a review yet in Apple Podcasts, that also would be greatly appreciated. With that, here's my interview with Adam. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Adam.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So, lots to dive into today with Muse, but can you first kind of introduce yourself, your role at Muse, and what your current iPad setup is these days?
Yes. So I am the solo developer at Muse since this past October. Mm-hmm. Before that, we were a small team building Muse. It grew out of a research project at the Ink and Switch Lab, human-computer interaction. I've loved working on it. My entire career has been either startups or small companies, whether it's my own or somebody else's. And I love building products and also having conversations directly with the people using those products. And so I love that experience, particularly at Muse, but throughout my career. My current iPad setup is a third gen 12.9-inch iPad with a Magic Keyboard and the pencil. And it is a love-hate relationship. It is mostly love. It's a bit heavier than I would like. So I'm actually really looking forward to whenever the next generation comes out. I think I might be due for an upgrade. But it's been wonderful. I use it pretty consistently.
The third gen, that's the 2018 redesign model. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. So it's getting pretty old, getting some gray hairs on its head. I think it's time to retire.
Yeah. Nice long life 2018. And in Muse itself, it's an iPad, and iOS app there's a web component as well?
It's primarily iPad and Mac, and it has an iPhone helper app as well, so you can easily add content into it, but it is iPad and Mac, and then
Okay, excellent. Well, outside of developing Muse for iPad, what role does the iPad play in your life these days?
So day to day, you can imagine, as I'm developing, I'm on my Mac a lot in Xcode.
Yeah.
And so anytime I'm not developing, I love to not be on my Mac. And so any other meetings that I go to or events or lectures, it's the iPad that I take with me. It's where I take notes. Part of what I do also, since I've been in startups my whole career, is I advise and mentor other startups. Through a program at Rice University called AlSpark over the summer, and U of H Red Labs that has undergraduate and graduate students building startups, and I volunteer with that. So when I go, I bring the iPad, and that's the device that can just be in the table between both of us. Easy for notes, easy for us to sketch out ideas, and it's a good collaborative device, whereas a laptop feels very closed in a conversation. That this is my laptop and my notes and my screen that you can't even see. Whereas the iPad can just lay flat on the table and we can both look at it and compare and collaborate together. And so it's that kind of experience that I love the iPad for.
Is the Apple Pencil a tool that you use on a regular basis?
It is. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm much faster typing than I am physically writing. And so the Magic Keyboard helps a lot. When I'm watching a lecture or taking notes, usually I'll type. But when I'm discussing with someone, it's usually the pencil, where we're drawing diagrams and arrows back and forth and that sort of thing. That's where the pencil really shines for me.
Okay, yeah. Any other general comments regarding the iPad before we move on to Muse? We're recording this just days before Apple's big event next week.
Yes, I'm very eager to see what comes out at this event coming up. I think I'm going to be opening my pocketbook, I suspect. It's funny, one of the things looking back at the iPad that I love about it and that irks me a bit is the number of system gestures that they've added over the years, whether it's like multi-touch pinch or swiping from the edges, or, I mean, all of these very, very useful gestures, and I use them every day and they're great.
It's kind of interesting. If you have like a second gen iPad Pro, or I'm sure other iPads without the gesture bar, they actually have it programmed in the system where you can do like an L-shaped swipe to do the same thing the gesture bar does on those iPads. And
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and predating that, you could use the 4 fingers to swipe between apps and stuff. And you could really navigate the whole iPad with gestures before they got rid of the home button, which was kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And I love them. And so I use those gestures, which is great. But as a developer, and Muse in particular makes very heavy use of gestures. There's a lot that we do with custom gestures and custom touch as part of the interaction. And so sometimes we've bumped up against, man, I would really love to use this. Or, man, what if we could do it? But it's a system gesture, so we can't override it. We can't use it. And
like you can't swipe down from top because you'll get notification center or control
exactly.
center.
Exactly. So I think I'm dating myself a bit, but 10 years ago I was working on an iPad app where one of the gestures was swiping in from the right edge to pull a piece of paper in. And I loved that gesture, but then of course now swipe in from the right edge is the, slide over and all the other things. So it's bittersweet. I love the gestures, but at the same time, I wish there were fewer of them so I could use them in my own app and I could build around them and build these experiences with them.
Like with Vision Pro, you have immersive mode where it just takes over the system and you don't get some of the system-wide things. You almost want like an immersive mode for iPad where like, hit this button, and it turns off some of the system stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I would love that because I would use that. But, of course, even with an immersive mode, the majority of users aren't going to be in immersive mode. So you still have to account for those things. And so it's fine. Fair play by Apple by building these wonderful gestures that are very useful. But I wish I could both have them and not have them at the same time in some kind of quantum universe where I could develop and use them.
And you're happy with the larger screen size? I mean, it's a bit heavy, but you like that as far as a canvas to work with on the pencil and stuff?
Yeah. That's the reason I got the large one, is I loved the canvas size. I loved having basically an entire sheet of paper sized screen that I could work on. That's my one complaint, and I think is going to be what ultimately drives my upgrade is the weight. And so if I could get something a bit lighter weight, I might even go down to the 11-inch. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But weight is really the driving factor for me. I would love something a bit lighter. But other than that, honestly, I could use this same iPad for another 8 years and be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's a great device.
Yeah. And the weight thing's going to be so interesting because they're making it much thinner, I hear. It's going to be like the thinnest device ever, which boggles my mind because I remember those early iPod Touches, which were insanely thin.
Right, yes.
But the weight thing, the Magic Keyboard's kind of the culprit there, and I hear they're going to add aluminum, and we'll see what that does to the weight factor.
And sometimes I have just left the Magic Keyboard at home and just taken just the iPad and pencil, and that cuts weight dramatically and is still a perfectly fine device. I can't type, obviously, as fast in that case, but yeah, so we'll see. I'm very excited for Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure. So for those that are unfamiliar with Muse, what is Muse?
So Muse is a tool to help you think. It's just a nice, cozy space where you can think deeply about whatever's on your mind, whether it's a particular problem at work that you're looking through, or strategies, or research papers, or anything else. The goal is a zero distraction tool for you to think deeply. And so It has a fairly minimal UI, and that's why, especially on the iPad, it's very, very gesture-centric. There's a mode where you can hide all of the Chrome of the app, and so you just have the canvas with your ideas and with your notes and your PDFs. And so that's really what it is it's a thinking tool at the end of the day. That's its main purpose.
And it's now at version 3. Can you kind of give me a quick explanation as to, start at version 1 and, what have been the major upgrades since its inception?
Well, so much has changed since version 1, and honestly, so much is the same as well. The core experience is an open canvas, is distraction-free thinking. It is a place for you to write notes with your pencil, to drop links and cards and images and PDFs and files, and just an open space to think. An enormous amount has changed. The version 1 was landscape only iPad app. The canvas was limited to about 3 screen widths, and so you could scroll left and right, but it was not an open canvas. And it was also single device, and so single user, single device. There was no collaboration, there was no sync, there was no nothing. It was a purely local data store on your iPad with a fairly small canvas size.
And what year was this?
Gosh.
Approximately.
This was around 2020, 2019.
Okay.
And so now with Muse 3, it fully syncs between your devices. There's collaboration, so you can invite other folks to come in and work with you on a board and share your board contents. We've completely built an entire custom sync layer, so it's not using iCloud, it's not using Firebase or any of the kind of standard technologies, but it is a custom sync designed for very, very fast real-time collaboration and real-time sync between your devices. So that's the biggest change between Muse 3 and Muse 1 is multi-device sync and collaboration. But a lot of the core tenets of the app, how the app functions, the content you can pull in, the spirit of the app as a distraction-free thinking space for you has been very core since the very beginning.
And with version 1 being a single device only, was it iPad to start, and then once you got sync enabled, that's where the Mac could start to be a part of Muse?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. It was iPad only. And it was, and that's where all of the gestures were born from, as it was very, very little Chrome, very few buttons. It was all gesture interactions, iPad only. And then the next version we built was the Mac app with sync. And then Muse 3 brought collaboration.
For the Mac app, was the iPad app kind of the starting point, or was it, from scratch kind of rewrite being more Mac-centric?
We revisited the UI and how we wanted to present it to feel more like a Mac app for the Mac, obviously. But it is the exact same code base underneath, which has made maintenance and development a very easy and clean experience. For the developers listening in, it is an iOS app first, and then it uses Catalyst as the transition to the Mac app. And then there's a few bits of AppKit that we use to kind of reach down into the traditional Mac systems. But it does share the entire code base one-to-one with the iPad. Yep.
And since you've released Muse, we've seen Apple release Freeform.
Yes.
So what, if anything, do you think Apple does well with this kind of endless canvas space?
Yeah, I'm really excited, actually. We were all at the time very excited that Apple released this, because when we launched Muse early on, there were very few Canvas-style apps that were out there. It was more common for designers to have it in kind of the Figma-style experience, but there were very few thinking tools for using the canvas. And Apple bringing Freeform really made it feel like, okay, this is it. This is a real space now. There are other players here. When I describe Muse as a Canvas app, people are, oh yeah, like Freeform. Before, you just get blank stares and say, I don't know what that means. Why is it not like a notepad? And so it made explaining the interactions much easier and really validated to us that this was where users were going and what users were expecting and wanting out of their devices.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting release from Apple, and was kind of like out of the blue, and then it makes a lot more sense with the Vision Pro and how they're implementing their kind of spatial persona collaboration method there. And that type of collaboration's pretty interesting. You can be I tested it out briefly, and you can be like simultaneously drawing and adding text to the same board in a spatial persona call, which is kind of interesting how they've done that.
Yeah. And that interaction and having that kind of canvas and document to work on together, I think is really liberating, because it's no longer limited to paragraphs of text in linear order, but you can actually move things around and kind of have thoughts organized a bit more like your brain thinks of them. If these things are close together in my brain, and so I put them close together on the canvas, and we can figure out the exact order later. But you can start moving your ideas around in a very fluid way instead of a forced, structured way.
Yeah. And with freeform apps in general, there's no like standard, like there's no .txt like you have for text files. Everyone uses kind of a different format. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And so one of the things we were excited about is when Freeform came out, it was like, great. Maybe we can import and export from Freeform, or maybe we can, integrate with the system. But Freeform has PDF export only. There's really no other way to get kind of that data.
Yeah.
And it's similar with the other apps that are out there that also have Canvas style features. There's really not yet an industry standard of what a Canvas file format should be. And part of that is because different apps supports a slightly different set of primitives. And so some are kind of cards and text only, but don't support ink. Some, like Freeform, have ink, but also have shapes and also have these other things. And so I would imagine over the next handful of years, everything will distill down to some sort of a sane file format. But yeah, for now, it's kind of the Wild West in terms of how things are shared back and forth, if they're shared at all between these Canvas apps.
Yeah. And it seems like a complicated problem to solve, because it isn't just like line 1 of text, line 2 of text. It's this endless canvas that some apps may support a bigger canvas than others, and what all is in that canvas, and it's complicated.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things in building Muse is digital ink in particular. I don't want to use the word nightmare, but but it's complicated. It is difficult to get that data model correct in a way that's expressive, and the way that that's handled in a high performance way in PencilKit is different than the way that it's done in Muse, is different than the way it's done on the web in something like TL Draw. And so even the fundamental data model of what an ink stroke looks like is not necessarily easily transferable between systems.
Was PencilKit around when Muse was created?
So PencilKit, I'm probably going to get my dates wrong. I believe PencilKit launched after Muse launched. Yes, it did. So in the very early versions of Muse, there was not that option from Apple. There's really very few third-party ink engines that you can just kind of drop in to an app. You kind of have to start from ground zero. There's 1,000 tutorials online to say, oh, here's how you can do it. Just do this, this, and this. And all of those work great until you have about 100 ink strokes on your screen. And then performance just falls apart. And so a lot of the early development in Muse was getting that ink performance in a way that you could support, a very large canvas filled with ink and filled with notes, and still have it perform really, really well. And then PencilKit came out, and we looked at transitioning to that, but the data model is still a bit too closed for what we need.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great drop-in option, and then you can kind of save and load essentially one large blob of data that represents the entire canvas. The way that Muse sync engine works is to support real-time sync between users and between devices. We send lots of very, very small pieces of data describing each ink stroke and kind of only send the diffs back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so to switch over to something like PencilKit, we'd actually end up having to send, huge piles of data back and forth that represent the entire screen. So it's one thing where the rendering engine for PencilKit is wonderful, but the data model to integrate it into something like Muse Sync, where we need a bit more finer grained detail about how it stores data. So I'm hoping that as that API evolves, eventually we might end up swapping out the custom ink engine that Muse currently uses for something like PencilKit, which would be great because then it just uses a standard tool that everyone is familiar with. But yeah, it was unfortunately not available at the time, so we had to build from ground zero.
Does Muse's ink integration, the tool you built out, does it support kind of pressure sensitivity with Apple Pencil, like kind of mimicking like what a fountain pen would do?
So right now, no. It's something that we've looked at adding over the years and something I would love to revisit. Right now, it's a flat ink stroke. And so it's a bit like a ballpoint pen where it's just a single thickness all the way through.
Gotcha. Okay. And yeah, I'm not sure, the demand for that stuff. It's something I always enjoy just doing.
Yeah, I love that interaction. It feels so nice to have just a bit of that personality in the ink stroke.
Yeah.
And it's something I would love to add and hopefully will add. It just hasn't quite bumped up to the top of the priority list yet.
Gotcha. So collaboration, you mentioned earlier. What is kind of the full collaboration story within Muse? In my research, there seems to be a lot of kind of more powerful features than what you would get with kind of Apple's kind of bare bones collaboration features that they've implemented in their apps.
Yeah, so collaboration is great because there's two different ways that you might work with somebody else. The first is like you and I on this call right now, we could have Muse open and be both working on the same board at the same time, and you see things moving around in real time. And the other thing is I might be on a plane and you might be at the lake house and neither of us have internet and we're both working on a board, and then we come back and sync online and everything connects and syncs back and forth. How do we resolve conflicts? How do we merge our work together? What happens?
Yeah.
And so the way that Muse works in both of those things is the sync engine uses something called CRDTs, which is a conflict-free replicated data type. And what that allows is both of us can make edits to the exact same document. And when we come back online, both of our changes sync across to each other, and all of the conflicts are resolved automatically, which is a bit of a hand wavy, like, trust us, it'll work out.
Yeah.
No big deal. And as we built this out, first for personal sync between devices, and so that conflict can still happen where I do something on my iPad, I do something on my Mac, and I might have conflicts with myself. Boy, what are we going to run into? And then with collaboration, is this going to be a problem? And what we've found is that because the way Muse syncs very, very small pieces of data back and forth, the conflicts themselves also happen at very, very small pieces of data. And so I could move a card from the left side to the right side, and you could change the card to be a yellow background and add some text into it. And so when they merge, we get what we expect. The card is moved, it's yellow with text in it. Neither of us have overwritten the other's changes. And so that piece of sync technology is both very, very hard to build, but for the user, it ends up just being a very simple collaboration model, real-time model. There's no versions, there's no drafts, there's no conflict alert that says, please pick A or B, without being able to see which one A or B is. And so that piece of it was very important for us to get right. And over the past many years of users actually using it together, I don't think we've ever had one support ticket of, oh my gosh, I synced these two devices and now something went wrong, which is amazing, right? Like,
yeah,
all of the content arrives kind of the way you would think it would. So it's very intuitive for the user, which is great. And then just functionally, your data in Muse is separated into multiple workspaces. So I have a workspace for just personally, one for our family, one for Muse, and one for other projects, one for the volunteering that I do. And then for each one of those workspaces, you can share the entire workspace with any number of other people. And then that person you share to gets just as much access as you do. And so it's for Muse itself is meant for a very personal, thought archive for you and thinking tool for you. And as you collaborate with others, it's meant as a shared thinking collaboration tool. And so permissions are very easy. Both of you are admin, essentially, on this workspace.
Mm-hmm.
You can add and edit and move things around, and everything syncs back and forth. And you can add as many folks as you need to, and that's it. So it's a very simple model, but that very simple model makes it really easy to fit into any number of different workflows or situations that you have.
So with the sync, if someone deletes something and the other person doesn't have that deleted, will the deleted kind of override if, like, say someone was working on that little card and then someone deleted it in the collaboration, and then they both go online, who would win that fight, I guess?
Sometimes. So it depends. So there's cards kind of live within a board. And if I move that card to another board, then it essentially creates a duplicate of that first card, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a card on board 1 and you delete that card and I move that card to board 2, then when we sync, what we see is board 1 does not have a card and board 2 does have a card. It's kind of what we would think is I moved it somewhere that I want it to be and it shows up. If you delete it from board 1 and I move it to somewhere else on board 1 and we sync, in that case, the card is gone because it's the same card on the same board.
Mm-hmm.
And when we sync, that card disappears. The magic of this sync system is it is a local first sync system. And so each device has a full copy of the data. So my iPad has a full copy of the workspace data. Your iPad has a full copy of the workspace data. So when we sync, both of our devices now have a full copy of both of our changes. And so in some rare situation where, oops, that card is gone. I actually really needed that. Where did it go? There's tools inside of Muse where you can basically search your history and bring that card back. So it's very safe to delete things. And that's been a huge priority for us is a user should never feel scared about their own data, And so if something disappears, that's fine. Everything's on your iPad. We can just go back and get it. The tools within Muse right now make it easy enough that people can just do that in the rare cases where a card disappears because they, accidentally deleted over a sync or something. But even if you want to, recover text from a month ago that, boy, that's long enough ago, we can't do it with just a simple tool. That's fine. We can still go back and get that data because it's there on your iPad as a history edit. And so that gives a lot of security for your data in Muse. And it's kind of relates back to actually how we have thought about pricing, where not only from a technology perspective should your data be safe and recoverable, from a pricing perspective, if you subscribe, add a bunch of data, start working in Muse, and then your tools change or your life changes or your projects change and you don't need Muse anymore, you can turn off payments and still have access to 100% of your data. So you're never locked out because of any kind of subscription plan to get access to the data that you have already created. You can always get to that. And that's been a core principle of Muse since the very, very beginning, is that security and confidence in your data in this program.
That's really cool. So if you stop a subscription, say like the job that, paid for Muse is no longer paying, and
right.
you then still have access. Does it become like a read-only app, or what's kind of the?
Yeah, if you end up downgrading to a plan that, or say you're now over a limit on the number of cards, then it just becomes a read-only situation where you're not able to add new content, but the content that's already there, you can still kind of shuffle around. You can still add ink notes with your pencil. You can still type into your existing note cards that you have on the boards. So there's still some edit ability that you have.
Okay.
You're just not able to add new content into the board. And so I think we struck a really good balance of not locking you out of your data, not making it, an annoying prompt when you just want to move it 3 inches to the left. You can still do that. You can still work with your data. Yeah.
As far as data ownership with collaboration, how is that viewed? Like, if I invite someone to collaborate and then I uninvite them, do they just get at that point whatever they had at that point, or does access get yanked? What's kind of the story there?
There's 2 answers to that question, surprisingly. There's the technology answer, and then there's the functional, what happens from a person's perspective answer. The technical answer is that because this is local first, if I share something with you, then your iPad downloads all of that content locally to your iPad. So you have it, right? Like it's been shared. You could have put it anywhere you wanted to.
Sure.
And so we treat that data as shared data. I can't pull that back from you. When I unshare it, your Muse app will say, oh, Adam unshared this workspace with you. Well, see you later. And it will close out that workspace on your iPad so you can't access it. Technically, the data that I shared with you, because it's local first, is still in that data store on your iPad, but it's not accessed through the Muse interface. So it's effectively gone.
Okay.
But because it's local first, yes, it is still shared with you up to the point that I revoked access. Anything new I do will not sync down to your iPad. You only ever see the data that was shared with you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so most people would not really be able to access that data after it's been yanked because they're not going to go in the Files app and try to dig through this.
Right. Yeah, if you want to go, mining through a SQLite database from a debug export of then yes, you could probably find a text note in there somewhere. But functionally, yes, I invite you, you work with it for a while, I uninvite you, it disappears from your iPad. And that's the functional user experience that happens.
Gotcha. Yeah, you couldn't grab the SQLite database and try to import it into the Mac version in some way.
Yeah, no, you're going to have a real bad time.
That's what I was thinking,
yeah, maybe that's, can a nation state do it? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
If you had a ton of resources and time, sure, you could go do stuff. But functionally, no one's going to do that. That's not an easy task.
Yeah.
And that's not something that we consider a data disclosure because you already shared that data. You already had access to that data. So you're not seeing anything that you haven't been able to see with permission before.
So you mentioned earlier that you've got a family Muse board and one from Muse itself. What are some of the ways you are personally using Muse? Within your family, do you have kids schedule kind of thing in there? What kind of things do you put in there?
Yeah, it's for a surprising amount of my life, as an adult grown human, I have struggled to stay on top of documentation for the various insurance plans that I have that I need to renew every year, right?
Oh, that's the worst. I never know where anything is.
And then it's, I had this plan for 5 years, but then we got a better rate on home insurance over here. So then we switched companies and my brain still thinks I have this company, but really we don't. And so that's one of the perfect use cases for Muse where I can drop in notes about, okay, I talked to the broker today. Here's what we decided. Here's what we're moving. Here's the plan. And I can kind of keep it all in one place, not just the idea of this is my insurance company now, sometimes that goes in 1Password or that goes in somewhere else. But
Yeah.
how did I get here? Why do I have this? So a lot of that information is in there. Some of the other things I did is I've told you I do a lot of volunteering. I advise and mentor other startups as well. And so there's boards I have shared with those founders where we have notes together that we'll pass back and forth during our meetings. Also things like home maintenance, a lot of those kinds of tasks of when the electrician comes, what are the 4 places in the house that we want to make sure he talks to and why and fixes, and what's our air conditioner warranty and those sorts of things.
Have you seen with the Muse community, you've got a great Discord. Have you seen some kind of creative ways that surprised you into how others are using the app?
Yeah, there's one. Well, you mentioned Vision Pro, and on launch day, one of the Muse users had a Vision Pro and pulled up the iPad version, which works really well. I've not yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pleased to see it running there, and I used it there, and because the iPad app was, developed, sensibly, all the eye tracking works really great there.
Yeah, so it worked out great. Yeah, all the gestures feel right, the eye tracking feels right. So I do eventually want to get like a proper kind of native Vision Pro version of Muse. But the fact that the iPad version works so great, that was really fun to see.
Yeah.
There was one customer, this was early on. I love the story because he's a pilot. And so whenever he's flying his Cessna around, he needs to talk to air traffic control and get vectors and, new radio frequencies, maps, what airspace you can and can't go to, and all that sort of stuff. And so he has his iPad strapped to his knee and preloads it with all the maps he needs in the airports and the runways and taxiways. And that's what he uses to fly, to organize kind of his flight plan and in the air while he's talking with ATC. And so that was super cool. Of course, there's lots of students and teachers use Muse as well in the classroom or for notes. When I was a kid, we had chalkboards and erasers and lots of chalk dust. But today there's smart boards. And so the front of the classroom is a huge computer screen. And so there's teachers that have Muse running on their iPad projected up to the smart screen at the front of the classroom. And so they can walk around the class talking with students, and then right there with the iPad, write or add notes or change things and move things around on the screen in front of the class. And so that's a really cool use of Muse and use of technology in the classroom that I never had as a kid growing up, but now my daughter does in her school, which is cool to see.
Yeah, the technology disparity between when I was going through school and now is immense.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
It's a different world. Yeah, yes. Absolutely.
Do you have a sense for kind of how large Muse databases have gotten? Like, is there somebody with like a 50 gigabyte Muse board out there?
The data size ends up being pretty reasonable. So even though so much of your edit history is saved locally on a device in that SQLite database, that database ends up being pretty small, all things considered. Usually a couple hundred megabytes for a very, very heavy user.
Yeah.
But the real size that it takes up is the files that you pull into it. And so if you're pulling in large zip files and huge images and giant PDFs and that sort of stuff, that's where your size is going to come from. In that case, say I pull down a 200 megabyte PDF and I'm using it in Muse for a while, and then okay, I'm done, and I delete it. That does get physically deleted from disk. And so
okay.
The only thing that Muse takes up on disk is the files that are physically present in your Muse at the time.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the Muse sync, everything's local, and then it syncs to your other devices. I'm imagining it also lives on the cloud in case you lose your device and can pull that stuff down. Is that with the servers that you maintain? Is that correct? That's
right. Yep. Those are servers we maintain. Yeah. So if you're on your boat at your lake house and you throw your iPad into the lake, that's fine. Yeah. Everything will sync down to your new device.
Excellent. Yeah. And is it also a part of the iCloud backup because it's local to your device too? So you kind of have it backed up two ways in that way?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So in that case, it will sync back in and you'll be able to get back to all of your content. Your authentication with the Muse server is in Keychain and will not restore from an iCloud backup.
Yep.
And so you'll still have all of your data. You'll just need to re-log in to initiate sync, and then it will resync everything. But it does restore from iCloud. That's right.
Nice. Okay. So next I want to dive into some of the core concepts of Muse. The first being nested boards, which is something kind of intriguing, where you can have a board, then a board within a board, and keep on going. And can you kind of share a bit on the overall structure of that and just some of the powerful ways people have used this kind of nested board idea?
Yeah. So there's the canvas space that you can put all of your cards and text and ink on. Muse calls that a board. And then each board can be presented as a card on some other board. And so when you first open up Muse, you have your canvas space and you have your single root board space, and you can drop images and PDFs and ink, and you can write text notes and all those sorts of things. And you can also add a card type that is another board. And so now that card is just a card like everything else. You can move it next to your PDF card and you can draw on it with your pencil. And you can also tap and zoom into that board. And so in a PDF card, you can tap and zoom into the PDF and view that PDF. In a board card, you can tap on that card and zoom in to an entirely brand new board. And so it's analogous to folders in Finder, where you start with your home folder and you can add as many subfolders as you want and subfolders into that. Where that analogy breaks down is a board, a card to a board can live in multiple places. And so I can have on my home screen, on my home board in Muse, I can have a card that goes to my current project, maybe a current bug I'm fixing or something like that I have notes in. And then elsewhere, I have a all projects board, and I can link to that same project from the all projects board. And so it's not just a tree structure with branches and branches and branches of boards and cards and boards with cards with boards with cards, but those can also relate back and forth to each other. So you can jump from one branch way over here on the right-hand side of your tree structure and click into a board that's on the completely other side of your world.
And how does the linking work? Like, can you just right-click on any, or I say right-click, but long tap and get URLs pretty easily?
Yeah, you can either each card on the iPad has a little menu, so you can click into the menu and create either a linked card, which will kind of create a card by reference. And so now those are referencing the same document and they go to the physically exact same place. Or you can duplicate a card, which will create kind of a deep copy and physically make a duplicate, a clone of that card. So you can do either one. And yes, then with both of those things, you can also create a URL. So within any place inside of your Muse library, your corpus of content, you can create a link. And if it's in a shared space, if you and I have a shared space together, I can send you that link and then you can click it and jump straight into the place that I had linked in our shared workspace together.
I'd imagine you could, put that in a calendar invite and right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Calendar invite, or, there's a lot of other kind of personal knowledge management tools that customers and users of Muse have. And Muse is very often kind of the active thinking space. And maybe they have a different app that is more of a kind of a long-term memory, long-term storage space. And so you can actually add links back and forth between Muse and some other program, and that other program can have Muse links, and you can just link, easily jump back and forth and connect those two tools.
Yeah, I can imagine like even task managers like OmniFocus linking back and forth between those.
Yep, exactly.
Is there the concept of a sitemap at all within Muse? Is that something you've considered, a way to like just give a bit like here's all the different cards and links and things kind of laid out?
Yeah, it's something I've considered. I've wanted to build that kind of a view, like almost like a star map kind of a view, because things can link anywhere, and so you can see, where are all the tunnels and where are all the branches and how do I get to all these different places. So far, I haven't done that, and that's probably in a large part because search can be so powerful, and so you can quickly search for every board, every document can have a title in Muse, and then there's obviously text notes and all the other content you can put inside of a board. And so searching is a very powerful way to find it and then jump straight to it. Whenever I open Muse for the first time, that's generally what I'll do, is I'll open up a new window or a new tab, hit search, find the board that I want to, jump straight there, and it brings me, maybe 4 or 5 layers deep in my content, but it's right to the board that I want. And then speaking of search, there's another fun thing that I love this interaction. You can search for a piece of content. I'm looking at some board, maybe in my projects board, and I remember, over here in the, bug fixing board, I had made a little space about such and such bug. Looking at my projects board, I can search for that topic. That bug report board comes up, and I can just drag it straight out of the search results and make a linked card from any search result into the current board, which is wonderful, because then I can just start up a brand new, fresh, blank board where I want to think about topic X, search for the 3 or 4 different boards that relate to that, and just pull them in from the search results. And so it's really easy to get started in connecting ideas together and connecting the various pieces of your library together. It doesn't have to be a very manual process of create a link, now navigate over here, now drop it, now navigate back, now do this, but it can be very, very fluid. And I just love that interaction. I use it all the time.
Yeah. With search, are you able to just search for, I want to see stuff I modified within the past week, kind of stuff like that?
So right now, search is text only.
Okay.
So it does not do modified within. There's also no tags. That's interesting.
Because I could imagine the modified has the potential to be kind of like an interesting kind of dashboard. You open Muse and kind of look at all the different stuff spread across your database you've worked on within the past month or something, and being able to jump around quickly to all the stuff that's kind of actively in progress.
Exactly. And that feature is something that's been in my thinking brain for a while of what's the right way to do this. Because there have been a number of users that have asked for, show me the stuff I've worked on recently, which I think would be great to add. And similar folks have asked for things like tagging, or asked for locking cards in place so that way you can't bump them accidentally. And there's lots of these little features that I can see, that would be very useful. I can see the value in that. But it's very easy to add 3 or 5 or 7 of those sized features. And now all of a sudden it's just a bit more clunky to use. It's just there's one more step you have to go through before you can do this thing. Or there's one more layer of thought of the user experience designers or UI designers will know the term cognitive load. Like, what is the cognitive load of using this tool? And right now, Muse has been very purposeful about keeping that cognitive load as low as possible. We want this just to be a very fluid, simple, no frills, just you and your content moving around, thinking together. And so that's why some features that you might think, why don't they have that? Why don't they have that? That's why is we've been just as purposeful about what we don't build as what we do build. And I'm sure some of those things will land eventually, like recently modified or kind of recent accessed. One example of that case actually is alignment, where like in Freeform or in a Keynote slide or in any of the other 1 billion apps on the planet, you have two boxes and you want to line up the boxes, well, you move it kind of close and it snaps to the edge, or it snaps to the center alignment, or it snaps to this. And that's great. But when I'm thinking through a problem, I don't need to think about alignment. When I'm making slides for a presentation, yeah, I might want to think about alignment because it needs to look nice for the people I'm presenting to. But when I'm just trying to solve quantum theory, I just need to be thinking about quantum theory. I don't need alignment snaps and all these other things. And so alignment is a feature that has gotten added, I want to say just a month or two ago, where you can select a number of cards and hit a keyboard shortcut, or use one of the context menus, and then all of those align to the edge together. And so it's still very easy to get a nice looking board with things lined up kind of precisely. But at the same time, it's not
in your face as
you're not grinding against that. Yeah, it's not in your face. You're not grinding against that feature every time you just want to move this thing a bit to the left because you have a new thought, right? And so it's those kinds of interactions that are very careful and purposeful when adding features.
As far as the nested boards, if you're like 20 boards in, say, so you've got this kind of very in-depth, linking of boards, is there a simple UI way to get them back to board one, or do they have to kind of go back one by one?
Yeah. So let's say you're 20 boards deep, and so you've been, jumping into this board and jumping into that board, and now you're, lost in the forest. At the top of the screen is breadcrumbs, and so it shows you the path of how you got where you are. And so then you can tap any of those levels to jump back up. You can jump back up to your parent board, you can jump 3 levels up, or you can jump all the way back to the very root board with just one tap. And that shows you the path that you took to get to that location, because there might be 3 different ways to get to that board because of linked cards. So you might have, I can go through my root board and then projects board and then into the project and then into this, sub project, or I could go to my today's to-do list board, my active, and so the breadcrumbs up at the top show you your path to your current location, and then you can easily jump anywhere you want. And then the sidebar also shows you other links to your current location. And so if I'm inside of a sub project, I can see, oh yeah, my projects board links to this place, my to-do list links to this place, and my customer feedback board links to this place. And so I can jump up to any of those parents quite easily too.
Nice. Another kind of unique concept to Muse, I think, is the inbox, which I don't think I've seen in many other apps in your category. What was kind of the approach to this, and what kind of utility does it provide? I can imagine like an iPhone, you're able to like throw stuff in the inbox and then deal with it later on a Mac or iPad.
Yeah. The inbox is really special. It actually was one of the core features that came out of the research before Muse was even a product. The idea is that on the left-hand side of your screen, either the iPad screen or the Mac window, you can take any card on your board and just kind of toss it into the left-hand edge, and it just sits there in the edge. And so then as you navigate around, that stays with you. And so it ends up being a very easy way to collect a couple of cards that you're thinking about, shove them into the inbox on the left-hand side, navigate to somewhere new, and then pull them out and start organizing and pull them out and start thinking about, how you want to work on that new project. And so it's a very simple, extremely simple way to move cards back and forth, or to kind of just stash something for later. What's interesting is over the years, that interaction is so primitive. It's so basic. It is just a stack of cards. You can only interact with the very top card on the stack. It sits there in the edge, and that's it. That is the feature. I think that simplicity is really powerful, because all of us have used email inboxes and know that inboxes can very easily become the place where things live forever. and then the inbox is just, it's no longer an inbox. It's just bad organization, right? It's just not, it becomes unhelpful, becomes purposefully unhelpful. And so the simplicity of sidebar inbox is that you can only interact with one card, with that very top card, and you can only pull it out and put it somewhere. So that stack of cards in the inbox ends up being very short, and it does not end up being an accidental organization place. It becomes a tool to help you move things around and help you think better, but it does not become combination trash can project organizer.
Yeah.
Like so many of our email inboxes are.
Does Muse work with like the iOS share sheet to throw from like the Files app, throw files into Muse from the share sheet, and would that end up in the inbox as kind of the default interaction?
Exactly. That's the best way to get stuff in is either drag and drop, either an iPad or Mac. You can drag stuff in from other apps, or share sheet, and you can share it into Muse, and then it just lands in that inbox.
Okay.
So it's very easy to get stuff in and start moving it around.
And what content do you actually support within Muse? And is anything unique in this kind of list of kind of supported file types?
Broadly speaking, if it is file shaped, like if you can drag it around, you can stick it in Muse, which is the thing that I love is you can just kind of put everything in there. So whatever you're thinking on, yes, it will support it. There's special support for videos, for images, and for PDFs, and for links. And so those get rendered a bit nicer than some of the other file formats. Yeah. But you'll at least get a file card, and so you can drop things in from anywhere, organize around it, which is great.
If you dropped a just plain text file, would that have editability within Muse, or would that just be a view-only file for you? Yeah,
text files are interesting. I think I should remember how the current implementation works, because we've gone back and forth a couple times. There's two different ways to add text into Muse. One is what we call text blocks. If you've used something like Notion, it's very similar, where you can kind of drag paragraphs up and down, and you're working at the paragraph level. Then there's text notes, which is like a Post-it note. It's just a card, and you can put text in it. And then there's text files. And dragging in text files would, like if it was enormous, right? Like if it was a text file of Moby Dick,
right?
It would just show up as a file, because it's like, hey man, that's a lot. Well, it's a file now.
Yeah.
But for other short texts, it'll create a note card.
Okay.
I believe is the current behavior, and then you can just edit the text directly.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then with PDFs, do you do a special annotation method, or are you using Apple's kind of system for that?
Yeah, it's the same ink that's on boards. And so one of the core tenets of Muse is that you can just ink anywhere. So if you see it on screen, you can draw on it, basically. So PDFs use the same ink tools as boards use, and then you can also draw over images or draw over anything else.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
With videos, I'd imagine if you can draw over the video, it'd just be that single drawing. It's not like you're not able to like animate stuff as it's going frame by frame, and it'll show different things as you're drawing.
Yeah, I believe you're stretching my brain a little bit, because it's been a while since I used videos.
Yeah.
Because I just don't use those day to day. But yeah, I believe in that case, both with videos and animated GIFs, you can draw on it, and you just get the same drawing every frame. So it's kind of like the football announcer with their pen on the screen.
Are there any other concepts that I missed, kind of that you feel are kind of special to Muse in your space, as far as, you know, features that you're really proud of being there? Yeah,
one of my favorite features actually comes back to PDFs. So it's very common to have, you know, maybe like a 20-page research paper, something like that in Muse. And so you're reading it, you're on page 8, you're highlighting text, and you're thinking, and there's a particular quote or maybe formula that, oh, this is what I need. So there's a concept of excerpts in Muse. So you can make a selection, and you can select an area a rectangular area of that PDF page and actually pull it out into a card, into an image card, and then place that anywhere you want on your board. And so you can have your PDF card that has the full PDF that you can zoom into and read, but then you can also have little cards of snippets that you have cut out from those pages. And the best part of those excerpt cards is there's a small little dot in the corner. And so you can tap that dot. You might have only selected one paragraph on the page that was particularly meaningful. Like, oh man, where did that come from? What was the context around that? You tap that dot and it actually kind of zooms out and shows you the entire PDF page where that came from. So now you can see it in context of where you snipped it. And then you can tap again and actually jump straight back into the full PDF at the exact location where you pulled that excerpt out of the PDF. And so that interaction has been just magical in terms of any kind of a long document that you're reading, any kind of a long PDF where you're taking notes, you care about some particular piece, you can just snip them out into excerpts and then easily and quickly jump immediately back to where you pulled it out from in context, right in the entire document. So that I think is a really powerful way to use PDFs within Muse. But it also works for images and it works for other content types too. But PDFs in particular, that's a really special interaction.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds pretty useful for sure. As far as the iPad version, that's where it started life out as an iPad app. What iPad-y things does the app do? Like, as far as like it being a good iPad native app citizen, what are some of your favorite little iPad touches?
Yeah, the way that gestures work in Muse is really pretty wonderful. So multi-touch and simultaneous gestures. We spent a long time making that interaction work as you would expect. So not only can you just obviously tap and drag a card around, but you can drag two cards around at the same time. You can start dragging a card and then tap into another board and zoom and start navigating around and then drop the card you were dragging into that new place. So all of the gestures are very intuitive, and they not only work individually, but they work together to do more powerful things combined. And that, I think we always felt, was something really special and unique about the iPad as a computing platform. Being able to have these gestures to accomplish tasks is already a wonderful experience, but then being able to do them together to be able to create experiences and accomplish things that you could otherwise not do very easily, or would be, cumbersome.
Yeah.
It ends up being very easy in a tactile, intuitive way.
And with the pencil, is it purely for inking stuff, or are you able to navigate the interface in any way with it as well?
Yeah, the pencil is primarily for ink, and then it's also used as a selection tool. One of the gestures that actually now I expect in almost every app that has a pencil is what we call quasi-mode gestures. And so as I'm writing, I'm just, penciling in some notes. Oops, I misspelled something because I don't know how to spell. I can just press one finger on the screen and then draw. And now the pencil is in eraser mode. And as soon as I lift that one finger, now it's back in pen mode. And so it's super quick to switch. As I'm writing, I can just toggle into eraser mode and erase something real quick without having to think about, wait, what mode is my pencil in? Am I in eraser mode? Am I in pencil? Am I in marker mode? Modes don't even matter because you have your pen and now you're erasing and now you have your pen again. And that's a very intuitive feeling, kind of quasi-mode, simple gesture. The other one is selection, where instead of holding one finger down on the screen, you press two fingers down on the screen, and now your pencil is a selection mode. So now you can draw out either a shape, you could draw a circle to select something, or you can do a rectangular selection to select a bunch of cards or text or ink and move it around together.
Nice.
So it's super quick to switch between writing with a pen, erasing with an eraser, and selecting a bit of text with just one or two fingers down on the screen. It becomes very fluid to very quickly switch between those things together.
Yeah, that sounds like a nice kind of flow as you're working. As far as the Mac and iPhone versions, anything unique for those platforms?
Yeah, the iPhone is primarily kind of a thought capture device. And so anywhere on your iPhone, you can open a share sheet and then share things into your Muse, and then those will sync over to the iPad or Mac into your inbox. Or you can open up the app and just type a quick note to yourself, and that will show up as a text note in Muse. The Mac app, I really enjoy because either tabbed windows or multiple windows. On my iPad, I'm a traditionalist. I generally have one thing open and then maybe a slide over if I want to look at email, if I want to look at something. But I really like that about the iPad, is that singular focus. I generally stay to that. Whereas with a Mac, I have usually a couple windows of Muse open to various different places and a couple different tabs. And so that becomes the place where I'm either importing a bunch of files or connecting it to some of the other apps that I use for organization. And then the iPad, I end up using to think and kind of actively work through a problem. I'll have my iPad open to a board and just focus. I'm in focus mode on the iPad. Whereas the Mac, I'm usually in kind of organization mode, is what I would call it.
As far as the boards themselves, have you considered, I guess we talked about time earlier with modification dates, but I can imagine some like cards or boards being pertinent to different calendar events coming up, and having some sort of calendar integration within Muse would be kind of an interesting concept. I'm not sure if it would be overly complex trying to add something like that to it.
Yeah, it's something I've thought about. There's also those two data types, the events and the calendar, I can see being very, very useful. And reminders app with to-do items.
Yeah.
Because often I'll be working in a place and there's some kind of to-do associated with that board or with that thought. And I'd like to be able to connect those two things. It's something in my mind that I would love to do, and I don't quite know what shape that will take on. But I think there is something there. My only caveat to this, and the part that is the balance in my brain of integrate these things, definitely go do it, and no, don't integrate those things, keep it simple. Alerts and reminders. Right now, there's really no alerts or reminders. The goal is to not interrupt you.
Yeah.
And to just keep you in your flow. And adding things like reminders or timers or events or things like that, I can quickly seeing it become kind of like a personal operating system, or once you have an event in there, wouldn't it be nice if it alerted you when it's coming up? And wouldn't it be nice if? And
yeah.
So I don't know. I think there is something there, but I haven't quite figured out what the right balance is of, how do you associate it with events and reminders without taking on the responsibility of those events and reminders at the same time.
What's the export story here in Muse? How can you get the data out of your app if you want it in different places?
Yeah. Yep. So the easiest exports are either PDF or as an image. So on any board you're on, you can export it as a PNG image, and you just get that that you can easily share either social media or email or something like that. PDFs will actually export full resolution page, in air quotes, of your board, but then also have different pages for all of the subboards with links between those. So if you export a PDF that has, 10 boards and kind of a complicated tree and lots of notes and images and things like that, what you get out is actually kind of a navigable PDF document where you can jump quickly, just as you could in Muse. You can jump between pages with links back and forth between the cards and their destination.
So the PDF actually has like links within the
exactly.
pages? Oh, yep. That's super cool. Okay.
Yeah, the PDF has internal PDF links. And so, which makes that PDF export wonderful. It's not just a read-only scrollable document, but it's, it's navigable. You can actually click around.
You can make like a choose your own adventure book sort of in there if you want to.
Exactly. Yeah, you really could. That's exactly right. Yeah. So those are the two easiest formats. You can also export it to a Muse bundle, which is a .muse file type. And then that is kind of an archival, or if you wanted to share something with me, but you didn't feel like sharing your entire workspace, you could just export a board, send it to me, and I could import it into my Muse, and then have that. That is actually just a zip file. So you can just rename it to zip, and then it unzips, and you see a JSON file that shows the structure, kind of a plain text description of what that board structure is. And then it has all of the files and images in there as well that that board references. So it's a very open, easy file format. There's been a couple folks who have used that file format to build static HTML websites from a Muse bundle, where then they can just unzip it and programmatically create a simple static web page, which is cool. Or another user in the Discord created programmable ink. And so they figured out what the ink format was in that JSON file. And then they could, I know how to do that. So then they could programmatically generate these super cool patterns in ink and create these Muse bundles that then they could import with interesting computer generated art inside of, which was neat. But yeah, it's pretty easy format to deal with. But to the conversation we had earlier, that comes back to there's no canvas format
right
and so we wanted something that was very simple for us to debug and just make sure we understood and had rock solid support for, but also was simple enough for anyone else to feel like their data wasn't locked.
Right.
There's not a standard that we can give you the canvas backend, but we can give you all of the information in an easy way for you to restore it if you would like to. So that's the goal with that format, is a very open, easy to use JSON and files zip file.
Does the zip file remove collaboration information? Like if I wanted to back up my Muse thing once a week, something I'm collaborating with, and then I lose my access, would that backup file work, or would it remember, hey, you got revoked access, and when you import that, it doesn't work anymore?
Gotcha. So the collaboration happens at kind of the workspace level in Muse. And so whatever you export from that workspace, if you then import that bundle into a different private workspace, then everything you import stays private.
Gotcha.
And maybe it had come from someplace where you had collaborated with people, but now because it's in a private workspace, it is private. And similar, if you export something to a Muse bundle from a private workspace and then import it into a shared workspace area, then that content becomes shared as well. It takes on all the properties, shared collaboration properties of that workspace.
And then I want to dive into the subscription, which I understand is changing by the time this episode releases. So can you walk me through kind of what changes are happening?
Yeah, I'm simplifying the pricing. There's a very generous free plan, and there's a number of users that just kind of end up staying on the free plan. You get 2 workspaces and then 100 cards per workspace, which is quite a bit for kind of casual use and for working through things. Once you've really decided, yes, there's value here, and I'm going to need way more than 100 cards, then you can subscribe to the unlimited plan, and that gives you, as it sounds, unlimited access. So as many workspaces as you want, as many collaborators as you want, as many cards as you want. It just fully unlocks the app, and you can use everything. And so that unlimited plan is either monthly, or you end up saving about 25% if you get the annual plan.
Okay.
And then we've also just launched with SetApp this past week. And so I know that a lot of folks, and this is a lot of feedback that I've gotten over the years from users, is, oh my gosh, another subscription, really? So SetApp is subscription. You pay $10 a month, or I'm sure they have a yearly plan too. And then you get access to their entire library, and Muse is inside of that library. And so one subscription, and then you get whatever you need out of that library, and that's it. So you don't have to figure out, do I want this app and this app, or this third app, or this fourth app, or where did this subscription come from? It's just one subscription. That's our much simpler pricing than it was before. We had a number of kind of different sized plans, and this just cleans it up, makes it it's an on or off switch. If Muse is useful for you, it's definitely worth the unlimited plan. If you hate subscriptions, that's fine. Go use it on SetApp. And then if you're a student or teacher, there is a discount available. So just reach out to support and we can give you a discount code if you're in education. And that's something we've always supported and been supportive of.
Very cool. And the SetApp is unlimited as well, I'd assume, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep. It has a slightly different collaboration limit on their platform, but you get unlimited workspaces, unlimited cards, and up to 5 collaborators. And so if you want more than 5, which I think ends up being very few people from the data that we have, then you'd want to use just a traditional unlimited plan. But broadly speaking, yes, SetApp is going to give you the exact same experience.
Gotcha. And I know SetApp is planning on launching their own EU store with the DMA stuff. What's the iOS and iPad story look like? Are you able to log into a SetApp within the iPad version, or because I know SetApp is primarily, in my knowledge base, Mac focused? What's the story with that?
That's right. I think they started as Mac only, and then they have since expanded into iOS. And so if you end up going through that subscription path, you download the Mac app through their SetApp store, their library, but then you get the exact same iOS app that you would get on the store. So just go to the App Store, download the Muse iPad app, and then there's a SetApp flow that they have you go through. Okay. So it opens a deep link into the app that lets you log in with your SetApp credentials.
Nice. Okay.
And then that connects you back to your account. Yep. But it's the exact same iPad app.
Cool. And then anything else in beta or in development that you'd want to share? Or is that the big update for today? Yeah, the new subscriptions and simplified subscriptions is the big news. Kind of going full circle, the thing that I love about working on Muse is the community and how supportive the community has been, and being in close contact with the people actually using Muse day to day and thinking through interesting problems and using it in their work and in their classrooms and with other people. And that is by far my biggest focus, is always the feedback from users. And I think since October, there's been over 30 updates, something like that, 35 updates. I don't know the exact number, but pretty much every single one of those is customer feedback oriented. It's, this new feature, this new thing is a little bit different. This thing is adjusted. This is tuned. This is, it's all about either new features from customers or feedback from customers or anything like that. So that's my continued focus going forward. Nice. And yeah, that's through the Discord, which it's very active as you mentioned.
Yeah, through Discord and then email support. And both of those are great conversations with folks using Muse.
Well, anything we haven't covered that you'd like to before we wrap it up?
Man, well, most of all, just thanks for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, and this has been a great discussion, so thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people learn more about Muse?
Yeah, so you can go to the website, museapp.com, M-U-S-E app.com. On X, it's museapphq. And or you can find me, it's my name, adamwulf.me. Last name spelled a bit funny, but it'll be in the show notes.
Yeah.
And happy to have you. Reach out on email or X or on Mastodon or any of the other socials that are out there. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks again, Tim, for having me.
Well, that's been an interview with Adam. My thanks to Adam for his time recording. My thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. Learn more about Muse at museapp.com. As a reminder, you can support the podcast at patreon.com/ApplePros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, I'll talk to everyone again real soon.